Alright, we're going to do some individual painting or floral practice, and we're going to keep it abstract. So I've got this great little book called the Flower Color Guide, but you can also use a catalog. The Spring Hill Nurseries in the US is excellent. They have really good quality pictures, and it's free. Just go on their website and order it. You probably get catalogs like this, but there's all kinds of great pictures. And of course there's Pinterest, but it's nice to have them, you know, in a magazine. So I thought we'd start with this peony here, and we're going to keep it loose and abstract, which is a challenge sometimes to not make it super realistic, but I'm trying to, you know, demonstrate here loose and abstract. So not a technical botanical drawing, which means we can be free with color. We can be we can just sort of try to see things as shapes and be very loose with our brush. Speaking of the brush, I've got here a number 4. This is a natural brush, Kolinsky, but I do use mostly synthetic. So we're going to see how this works. I might switch to my other favorite brand for florals. Well, actually, it is my favorite brand, is the Princeton Velvet Touch. But I just wanted to try this first. You want something soft that can really give when you're making this, instead of, like, let me show you what you don't want. Let's see here, like an acrylic. You'll see them, they say they're for acrylic paints. See how, maybe you can hear this, how stiff those bristles are. And with a watercolor brush, you don't hear anything, right? They're soft. It's really soft. So you want soft for this. If you try to do this with a stiff brush, you'll be frustrated. All right, and we're just gonna make some loose shapes and let the gouache with water change our tone a little bit and our value, you know, going from dark to light. And this is great practice for choosing flowers for your bouquets or your floral paintings. So I'm looking at this one, and I'm just gonna kind of, again, trying not to overthink or overplay this. Just thinking about using more water or less water, similar to watercolor painting, very similar, because gouache really is an opaque watercolor. Coming around here, maybe with another petal. Thinking about darker in the center, especially along this edge, so I can take my paint and just dab it in there. It'll automatically be darker. And then I can take my stem. It'll bleed in, but I think that's pretty. If you don't like that, then you want to let this dry before you do a stem. Just go quick with your stem. Really light touch. I'm going to make my leaf kind of come down. Remember, we're trying to stay loose and abstract, so I'm not going to make it really I'm not going to be fussy. I do these on cards. I'll do another video on that. You can make cards that people love. Now, you know I love color, so for some interest, I'm gonna dab. By the way, I grabbed coral and opera pink, or it might be opera red. Now I'm gonna grab a warmer red and just put that in there. Let it bleed. And this paper is this is a you can see the texture in it. It's a studio watercolor by Fabriano, I think. Yeah, it's this one. Really inexpensive, but it's got some nice, if you like that effect, it's got some nice texture to it. And this is personal preference here at the center, so we can put it in now while it's wet. Just darken that a little bit, or we can you can wait and let it dry. But I'm going to go ahead and put some yellow in there now, and you can even do this and not touch. But wherever you touch, it's going to bleed. I kind of like the bleeding, so I'm going to go ahead and touch the edge, getting some warmer yellow. And just gently kind of pushing it toward that edge so it touches in some places and not in others, because I don't want it to bleed everywhere. And I can, with gouache or watercolor, you can pull paint off by just absorbing it with your brush like that, so that it's a little lighter here in the center. It acts like a sponge. You just rinse and then dab it in your paper towel and pull paint off. And then I will let that center dry before I put in these dots, and I think I'll put in like, a pink dot and let that dry. So that's a loose peony. You could also let this dry and come in with another petal if you wanted. Kind of like right here. Let's see if we can put another one on this page. Kind of more like that one. So lighter, so I need more water. And I'm gonna face it so it's not straight up. I think I'm gonna face it. Kind of like that. And I'm just really letting the brush kind of guide the process. That's so that I don't overwork it. I'm just kind of looking here and just making these loose shapes and keeping a loose feel on the brush. You see I'm not down here like this, right? That would be for a precise botanical drawing. So I'm touching the color. See how far out I'm holding the brush, and I'm just being very loose. All I'm looking for really is, where is it dark? Sort of darker right in there, just to give a hint of, I'll put a little green in there because it's just not darkening up. I'm going to do the same thing here now that this one's dry, just putting a little bit of green, which is the complement to this red pink, and will give me some shading. A little over here. Whoop, too much, so I'm glad that happened. I'm going to show you what to do. Grab some of it here. So, like I said, you just sponge it up, rinse, paper towel, sponge. And your paper will buckle and pool. If you, I don't mind that, but if you don't like it, you can tape it down and prevent some of that. All right, I'm gonna let that dry. So back to this. This is, I think, really nice the way it is. It's gonna dry much lighter. And I see here some green underneath the stem, so we're going to let that bleed in, and some leaves, so we're just going to very lightly kind of bring the stem down here. And you know, in abstract, you just need the suggestion of things. If you think that way, it really helps. It's suggestion of a leaf. And sometimes a larger brush can help you be looser. You see how little paint it's taking to do this. It's just, you don't need much. Such a creative exercise. And being loose here, take another leaf up this way. I want it to be playful, suggestive. And I'm watching how this is drying, seeing if I want to add anything else yet. You know, with gouache and watercolor, you're watching what you add, you know, when you add it in its drying process, informs the movement of it. So if you let it dry a little bit, it won't move as much. If you don't let it dry at all, the color moves a lot. And if you let it dry completely, the color will not move. It just sits there on top. So you just keep that in mind when you're playing. So I'm just going over this because I wanted to lighten it a little bit. And since we're using gouache, which is, you can reconstitute with water, I can do that. I can come through here, lighten that up, hit my paper towel, and I'm going to come back up here and do maybe a bit darker leaf. Grab some of my navy, mix it in, and come out here. I kind of like this stem here. Maybe just touch there. And when I introduce a color like this, a darker color, you want to put it in a few other places so it's not just all by itself. At least that's what I like to do. And just kind of playfully coming down here, reminding myself to use the brush really lightly and playfully. I'm going to get some of my other green that I had. And, you know, gouache is very intensely pigmented, so you really want to go lightly out of it. Some of this paper is resisting. I don't know if you can see that and that. I think that's kind of cool, but I think it's because I had maybe touched this sheet of paper, you know, and maybe I had something on my hands. I'm not sure. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I want another leaf kind of coming out from this one. I think I do. Maybe it's sort of coming around this. Like so. Put a little dark in that. Put some of that navy in here. These, so these are already on the in a drying place. So I'm not going to go put navy on that because what'll happen is it'll just sit there on top. So I can apply it to these that are still wet to get that darker tone, darker value, really, not tone. tone is like a gray, adding gray, but I'm not going to add it here. I really like how this is drying in here. And see how that pooled here? I don't mind, I like that, because you might say, well, technically the outside of the flower is supposed to be lighter, and this is going to dry darker, but I think that's so cool that I don't care. So now I'm going to take some of my yellow and just touch of it a little bit in here for my center. And then I can take some of this red and do this little bit of shading in there. A little bit of shading here. And I'm not being super precise, just adding interest really. This is quite a bit faded, which is okay. I want this flower to be a little bit more pale than this one, but I don't want it to be completely washed out, so I just touched it there with a little bit. And you can see that this yellow is bleeding out quite a bit, so that just means that's because I didn't, dry it very much. So what I could either leave it because it's pretty, or just for the sake of showing you, I'm going to mop some of it up and put a little more pink back in there and some red, and then let it dry a little longer. I just want to show you how you can use, you can get some flexibility with gouache and watercolor. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit, and that center is almost dry. And then I can put some yellow back in. Hit it with the pink. And then, I really like, if you see what I do, I love turquoise. So it's a great opportunity while these are wet to, it's too late on those because I'm talking, that's okay. And I can get some turquoise into these leaves. Just bits of it here and there. I can take it on top of this stem even though it's dry. It just adds a little something, something. And if I wanted to, I could do this. So even though these are dry, I can do, the line over it. And so it's just a little different. And I also love turquoise. I want to see if this is dry. I want to do a little bit of dot of turquoise in here. Turquoise just makes everything kind of come to life. That is not ready. That's gonna have to, and by the way, this turquoise, which is amazing, is the Winsor Newton Cobalt Light. Trying to see if that's dry yet. Let's see if this moves much. I'm gonna put some of the yellow. I'm gonna put the paler yellow in this flower. Oh yeah, that's pretty. I'm just dotting it. And it's good. It's not spreading too much. And I'll let that dry some more and then do some turquoise in there maybe. Anyway, that's a fun way to practice. It makes you think about, well, you learn about the paint. It makes you think about how the paint moves. It helps you loosen up. And you can use, like I said, magazines or any books that you have. I have a lot of flower books. Or you can use Pinterest and you can create something like this where you're just allowing yourself to be loose and playful. Make sure you have a soft brush. I never did switch to the other brushes, so this one was nice and soft, and it was full when it gathered paint. So it doesn't have to be an expensive brush, but it should be a nice soft with a decent point on it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this.